Jax's revenge domain.
The moment CEO Brian Walsh pointed to that folding chair in the corner, I knew my second career was about to get interesting. Not the mahogany conference table where the other executives sat. Not even a regular chair, a metal folding chair like you'd find at a church potluck. "Consultants sit over there," he said without looking up from his tablet. "This discussion is above your clearance level." Name's Wade Harrison, by the way. 54 years old, retired Marine colonel with 28 years of service under my belt. 3 tours in Iraq, 2 in Afghanistan. Now I handle defense contracts for companies that think they know better than the people who actually fought the wars. I straightened my cufflinks and set my briefcase down next to the folding chair. Didn't sit, though. Inside that leather case were the signed authorization papers for a $425 million defense contract. Walsh's company needed that money to deliver their new battlefield communication system to the Pentagon. Without it, they'd miss every deadline and lose their government clearance. "I'm here as requested," I said, keeping my voice level. Walsh finally looked up. 27 years old, maybe? The kind of guy who thinks a tech degree and venture capital makes him Napoleon. Then sit where you're told. The adults are talking business. A few chuckles around the table. My son Jake shifted uncomfortably in his intern chair near the back. Kid was 22, college senior, doing summer internship here. Watching his old man get put in his place by someone 5 years younger than him, I stayed standing. "There's something you should know before we start." Walsh's head tilted like a confused dog. "What's that?" "If you want me sitting in that corner chair, then by Thursday morning $425 million won't be part of this contract anymore." The room went quiet. Then Laura Bennett, one of the board members, actually laughed. "Sure thing, Grandpa. Maybe you can threaten us with your Bronze Star next." More laughter. Walsh grinned and shook his head like he was dealing with a confused old man. "Enough, sit down and let the professionals work. You know, back in Fallujah, we had a saying, respect is earned in drops and lost in buckets." I'd earned mine over 28 years, starting as a second lieutenant fresh out of Quantico. Worked my way up through every rank, led Marines through some of the toughest fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan, lost good people under my command, made decisions that kept more alive. That kind of responsibility changes you, teaches you what really matters. When I retired in 2018, I thought the hard part was over. Military pension wasn't enough to maintain the lifestyle Elena and I had built. The kids were in college, divorce was expensive, and I needed a second career. Defense contracting seemed like a natural fit. Use my military experience, help companies navigate Pentagon bureaucracy, make decent money. What I didn't expect was the attitude. Companies that treated veterans like relics, CEOs who thought military experience meant outdated thinking. I'd been dealing with it for 6 years now, but this was the first time it happened in front of my son. Look, I should explain how we got here. 6 months earlier, Walsh Industries had won a major Pentagon bid for next-generation battlefield communications. Big contract, bigger ego, but they needed private capital to fund the initial development phase. The kind of money that comes with serious strings attached. My firm specializes in defense contractor financing. Been doing it since I retired from the Corps. When Walsh's people first reached out, they were all honored to work with a veteran and respect for your service. Right up until they thought they had the money locked down. This meeting was supposed to be a rubber stamp. Sign the final paperwork, release the funds, everyone goes home happy. Walsh had specifically requested I attend in person. Important to have all stakeholders present, his assistant had said. I'd driven down from Austin that morning, cleared my whole afternoon, even brought cigars for after we closed the deal. Should have saved the gas money. Jake had been excited when he found out I was coming to his company. Kid was proud of his internship, wanted to show off a little, introduce his dad to his coworkers. Instead, he was watching me get humiliated. Walsh pulled up his presentation on the wall screen. Timelines, technical specifications, confident projections about delivery dates they'd probably never hit. He talked like he was briefing generals, explaining basic military concepts to someone who'd actually led Marines in combat. "These deployment schedules are aggressive," Simon Clark said. Finance director, one of the few people in the room old enough to remember when defense contracts actually got delivered on time. "They're necessary, not aggressive," Walsh shot back. "That's why we brought in outside capital." Rachel Foster, another board member, nodded along. "If they don't like the terms, they can find another contractor." Walsh smiled at that. "They won't. We're the only game in town." I shifted my briefcase from one hand to the other. The motion caught Jake's attention. My boy looked embarrassed, like he wanted to sink into his chair. Kid probably told his college buddies his dad was some big-shot defense contractor. Now he's watching me get treated like hired help. "You can leave that outside," Walsh said, not bothering to look at me. "We don't need consultants weighing in on technical specifications. I'll keep it here." His head turned slightly. "That wasn't a request. The case contains the authorization documents." A pause. Several people looked up from their papers. Jake straightened up in his chair. "We're not here to debate paperwork," Walsh said. "We're here to finalize the transfer." "Transfers require proper authorization," I replied. That got more attention. Walsh folded his hands like a teacher about to explain something to a slow student. "And who exactly do you represent in this room?" "The Capitol." Brief quiet. Not confusion, more like irritation. "That's being handled by our legal team," Walsh said. "Thanks for your input." Simon spoke up more carefully this time. "We still haven't received final authorization confirmation. Legal will handle it," Walsh snapped. "Let's move on." The discussion got louder after that, like volume could make the problems go away. I listened and watched. Watched who nodded when Walsh spoke, who smiled at his jokes, who stayed quiet when questions needed real answers. They'd decided who I was the moment I walked in. Gray hair and a briefcase instead of a laptop meant outdated. Retired military meant out of touch. They were wrong on both counts. In Ramadi 2005, I had a company commander who made the same mistake. Lieutenant fresh out of college, thought he knew better than his platoon sergeants who'd been fighting for 3 years. Ignored their intel about IED patterns en route Michigan. We lost 2 Marines that day because he couldn't respect experience he didn't understand. Walsh reminded me of that lieutenant. Same arrogance, same assumption that rank or title meant he was automatically right, same inability to recognize when he was outgunned. Simon tried again. "Before we continue, we need confirmation on fund authorization." Walsh waved it off. "That's just paperwork. It's not," Simon said. "Not at this level." Walsh's eyes narrowed. "We've been working on this for months." Simon glanced at me. Quick look, then back to Walsh. "Final release requires direct authorization." Walsh followed Simon's look, irritation sharpening, from legal. From the fund administrator, Simon corrected him quietly. "From the contract authority," I said. The room shifted. People stopped typing on their tablets. Jake was watching me now, curious instead of embarrassed. Walsh studied my face like he was looking for some kind of tell. "You're saying you control the contract funds?" "I'm saying I'm the designated authority for this specific defense contract." Laura Bennett scoffed. "You?" "Yes." Walsh leaned forward. "How much authority are we talking about?" "All of it." The room got very quiet. Jake's mouth was actually hanging open a little. Kid was seeing his old man in a different light. "The private defense fund accounts for the entire $425 million commitment," I continued. "Without it, this contract cannot proceed." "That's not what we were told," Walsh said. "That's because nobody asked the right person." His expression started changing then. The kind of change that happens when someone realizes they might have made a serious mistake. Like watching a poker player realize he's been bluffing against a straight flush. "And you felt the need to handle this personally." I insisted on it. "Why?" "Because the last defense contract I delegated got canceled under poor management, cost the contractor their clearance and their business." Another pause. This one felt heavier. Simon nodded once. "He's listed as primary authorization on all our paperwork." Walsh's voice got cooler. "This meeting was supposed to be about final coordination." "Final coordination requires someone who can approve the release," I said, "or deny it." Jake was sitting up straight now, watching this unfold like he was seeing his dad for the first time. I caught his eye for a second. Kid gave me a small nod. He was starting to understand that his old man wasn't just some relic being put out to pasture. You know what the difference is between military leadership and corporate management? In the military, respect flows up and down the chain of command. A colonel doesn't disrespect a master sergeant just because he outranks him. Experience matters. Competence matters. In corporate America, too many people think respect only flows upward. I'd spent 6 years since retirement learning that lesson. Dealing with 30-something MBAs who thought my 2.5 decades of service made me obsolete. Listening to tech bros explain modern warfare to someone who'd actually fought it. This was the first time I had the leverage to teach it back. Walsh straightened up in his chair. Then maybe we should restart with proper introductions. We can, I said, if that's what you want. He hesitated just long enough for me to see the tactical assessment happening behind his eyes. See, I'd been invited into that room to decide whether $425 million in defense funding would move forward. The kind of decision that makes or breaks companies. The kind of responsibility I'd been handling since before Walsh learned to drive. They hadn't seen that. They'd seen a retired Marine with gray hair who didn't fit their image of modern defense tech. But Jake was seeing it now. Kid was watching his father command a room full of executives without raising his voice or making threats, just by being competent and professional. I watched them recalibrate, one face at a time. Gary Hoffman stopped checking his phone. Neil Rodriguez closed his laptop. Rachel Foster actually straightened up in her chair. Walsh found his rhythm again quickly. Corporate types are good at adapting when they realize they've miscalculated. Now that everyone's role is clear, he said we can proceed with the coordination meeting. Simon hesitated. There is one item we still need to address. Walsh didn't look at him. We've covered the technical specifications. Simon tapped the folder in front of him. The conduct provision, now that got Walsh's attention. His eyes lifted slowly from his tablet. That clause was standard government language, Walsh said. It wasn't, Simon replied, it was customized. I didn't interrupt. Sometimes the best leadership is knowing when to let other people make your point for you. Simon was doing fine on his own. Laura flipped through her copy of the contract, section 15. Gary leaned over to read. What does it say? Simon answered slowly, like he was reading legal text for the first time. It ties fund release to professional conduct during all contract negotiations. Any documented behavior that materially damages working relationships allows for immediate contract suspension. Neil finished reading the fine print. Without prior notice, Walsh exhaled hard. That's just legal protection. It's theoretical, it's operational, I said quietly. He turned to me. Our lawyers approved that language. They drafted it at my specific request. A beat passed. You were concerned about professional conduct? I was concerned about respect. Andrew Morrison glanced toward the security camera mounted near the ceiling. This meeting is being recorded. Standard procedure, Walsh said quickly. Security protocol. Yes, I said. For documentation, Simon adjusted his reading glasses. The provision doesn't require intent to cause damage. Only documented impact and witness verification. Plus, the recording serves as evidence, Rachel added. Walsh closed his contract folder. This is getting off track. It's part of the signed agreement, Simon said, filed with Pentagon procurement and legally binding. Gary spoke up. Has this conduct clause ever been triggered? Once, I said. The room went quiet again. Jake was staring at me now. Kid was putting together pieces of his father's work that he'd never understood before. How did that end? Gary asked. The contractor lost their clearance and went out of business within 6 months. Walsh stood up fast. We're taking a 15-minute break. Chairs pushed back. Conversations broke into whispers. Jake caught my eye and mouthed, Dad? I nodded once. Kid was starting to understand that his old man's work involved more than just shuffling paperwork. The thing about military planning is that you always have contingencies. Plan A, Plan B, Plan C. You hope you never need the alternatives, but you prepare them anyway. When I agreed to this meeting, I'd already run through every possible scenario. Walsh treating me with respect was Plan A. What was happening now was Plan B. As people filed out, the security camera kept recording, red light steady and indifferent, capturing everything for posterity. I stayed seated for a moment, then stood and followed the others into the hallway. The corridor was quieter but not empty. 2 board members stood near the elevators, voices low. They stopped talking when they saw me. Walsh walked past without acknowledging me, already on his phone, already trying to manage the situation. Too late for damage control, but corporate types always think they can talk their way out of consequences. Simon caught up to me near the water fountain. Wade, we need to talk. Not yet, I replied. He nodded once, understood. Smart man. He could see the operational tempo shifting and knew better than to get in the way. I found a quiet alcove and took out my secure phone. 1 number, no hesitation. Go ahead, the voice answered. My business partner, Paul, back in Austin. Initiate the suspension protocol, I said. Defense contract 77049 Alpha. Brief pause. Full suspension? Yes. Effective in 48 hours per standard procedures. Reason code? Professional conduct violation, documentation in progress. Copy that. Pentagon notification will go out tomorrow morning. The line went dead. I didn't check my watch. I didn't second-guess the decision in Fallujah. When you called in artillery, you didn't sit around debating whether the target deserved it. You'd already made that assessment before picking up the radio. 28 years of military service teaches you when someone's crossed the line, when respect becomes non-negotiable, when consequences need to be delivered with precision and finality. Jake appeared at my elbow. Kid had followed me into the alcove. "Dad, what just happened in their business?" I said. "That didn't look like business. That looked like," he searched for the right word. "Like what?" "Like you just destroyed his company." I looked at my son, 22 years old, smart kid, but still learning how the world really works. I gave him a chance to show respect. He chose humiliation instead. But all those people will lose their jobs. They'll lose their jobs because their CEO couldn't treat people with basic dignity. Not because I held him accountable for it. Jake was quiet for a moment. "Is that really how it works?" "That's exactly how it works. In the military, we call it command responsibility. Leaders are responsible for everything their unit does or fails to do. Walsh failed to maintain professional standards. Now he gets to live with the consequences. And you can really cancel a $425 million contract just like that, son. I've been managing defense contracts since before you were born. I know exactly what I can and cannot do." Jake nodded slowly. "The other interns thought you were just some old guy who used to be in the military. What do you think now?" "I think they don't understand what old guys in the military actually did." When I turned back toward the conference room, Walsh was standing near the door. He looked less confident now, like a man who just realized he'd brought a knife to a gunfight. "Look," he said, "maybe we got off on the wrong foot." "Maybe," I replied. His jaw tightened. "You could have clarified your role from the start." "I tried. That's not what I mean. I know." He stepped aside to let me pass. Jake followed, staying close to my shoulder like he was suddenly proud to be seen with his father. Back inside, the room was trying to reset itself. Papers reorganized, coffee refilled, voices attempting their previous confidence, but the dynamic had fundamentally changed. People who'd been laughing at the old Marine 20 minutes ago were now watching him carefully, trying to calculate how much damage he could do. Walsh looked up as I took my seat. "We'll resume in 2 minutes." I placed my phone on the table, screen down. My briefcase stayed beside my chair. Jake had taken a seat closer to the front. Kid wanted to see how this played out. Simon watched me carefully. He didn't ask any questions. Smart man. He could read the tactical situation as well as anyone. The wall screen came back to life with projections that assumed $425 million still existed where it had that morning. Timelines that marched forward like nothing had changed in the last hour. As we were discussing, Walsh said, clicking to the next slide, "The deployment timeline requires immediate fund release to meet the first milestone." "When do you need confirmation?" Gary asked. "By end of business Thursday," Walsh replied. "Pentagon wants to see progress by Friday." "That's 2 days from now," Rachel noted. "Correct. Which is why we need to wrap this up today." I cleared my throat. "There's been a development." All eyes turned to me. Jake leaned forward, fascinated by watching his father operate at this level. "The Pentagon will receive formal notification tomorrow morning that this contract is under administrative review." Walsh's face went completely pale. "What kind of review? Conduct assessment. Standard procedure when professional standards are questioned." "That's not possible," he said. "We haven't signed anything yet." "The review covers all pre-contract negotiations," I replied, "including this meeting." Simon leaned forward. "How long does that review typically take?" "Minimum 48 hours. Maximum 30 days, depending on findings." Walsh stood up fast. "You can't do this. We have deadlines." I said, "and I have." "You don't understand," he said, voice rising. "We'll miss our Pentagon milestones. They'll cancel the entire program." "That's possible." Laura spoke up. "What would it take to stop the review?" I looked around the table. Jake was watching me intently, seeing his father handle business at a level he'd never imagined. "Nothing. It's already in motion." Walsh slammed his hand down. "This is blackmail. This is consequences," I replied. Gary was already pulling out his phone. "I need to call our legal team." "Good idea," I said. Walsh turned to his board members. "We can fight this challenge, the provision." Simon shook his head. "We signed it. It's binding. There has to be something we can do." "There is," I said. Everyone looked at me. "Learn from it." Walsh's voice dropped to almost a whisper. You're really going to destroy this company over a seating arrangement? I'm going to uphold professional standards, I replied. The Pentagon expects contractors who can work respectfully with their oversight personnel. You've demonstrated you can't. Jake was nodding slowly. Kid was understanding something important about accountability and leadership. Around the table, people started gathering their papers, speaking in lower voices, already distancing themselves from what was happening. I picked up my briefcase. The review notification goes out at 8:08 he 0 tomorrow. Pentagon procurement will receive a full report by Thursday noon. And for the first time since I'd walked into that room, Brian Walsh understood that his company's future had just changed forever. The next few months played out exactly as you'd expect. The Pentagon review was thorough and damning. Walsh Industries lost their clearance and their funding. The company laid off 180 people before Christmas and filed for bankruptcy protection in February. Walsh himself got fired by his own board 3 weeks after our meeting. Jake told me later that he spent his last day in the office cleaning out his desk while security watched. Kid said it was painful to watch, even for someone who'd treated people so badly. The interesting calls started coming about 6 months later. First was from Colonel Diana Foster at the Pentagon. She wanted to discuss something called the Professional Standards Initiative. Apparently, the Walsh situation had gotten attention at the highest levels. They were creating a new program focused on contractor accountability and veteran integration. We need someone who understands both sides, she said. Military culture and corporate culture. Someone who can build bridges instead of just burning them down. I'm listening. We want you to head up the Veteran Transition Consulting Program. Help companies understand how to work with military personnel. Help veterans navigate corporate environments. Real cultural change, not just training seminars. The pay was good. The mission was better. Using my experience to help other veterans avoid the kind of disrespect I dealt with for 6 years. Jake was excited when I told him. Kid had graduated and was working for a veteran-owned tech company in Austin. Seeing his old man stand up for himself in that conference room had changed how he looked at military service and professional respect. You're going to teach companies not to be jerks to veterans? He asked. I'm going to teach companies that military experience is an asset, not a liability. That respect flows both ways in professional relationships. What about Walsh? What about him? Do you ever regret what happened to him? I thought about that. I regret that 180 people lost their jobs because their CEO couldn't show basic courtesy. I regret that his arrogance cost his company everything they'd built. But I don't regret holding him accountable for his actions. The second interesting call came from Jennifer Walsh, Brian's sister. She'd started her own company focused on workplace culture consulting. Smart woman, learned from her brother's mistakes. I want to hire you, she said. To do what? Teach other CEOs what my brother learned too late. That leadership means treating everyone with dignity, regardless of their age or background. Why would I help you profit from your brother's failure? Because the alternative is more companies making the same mistakes, more veterans getting disrespected, more good people losing their jobs because leaders don't understand consequences. She had a point, and the consulting work turned out to be some of the most satisfying of my career. Teaching young executives about military leadership principles, showing them that respect isn't weakness. It's the foundation of effective teamwork. The program grew faster than anyone expected. Within 2 years, Harrison Veteran Consulting was working with 40 companies across 3 states. Jake joined the business after getting his MBA, bringing fresh ideas about technology and veteran networking. We developed training protocols, assessment tools, and integration programs that actually worked. Companies started competing to get certified as veteran-friendly employers. Pentagon contracts began including cultural competency requirements. The best part was the letters from veterans who found good jobs with companies that valued their experience. Former Marines working for tech startups, Army logistics officers running supply chains, Navy communication specialists designing civilian networks. Brian Walsh, by the way, eventually found work as a mid-level manager at a smaller company. His sister told me he'd learned humility the hard way, through therapy and genuine self-reflection. Sometimes consequences can be teachers if people are willing to learn. Looking back, that moment with the folding chair changed everything. Not just for Walsh's company, but for how I understood my own value and purpose. Military service doesn't end when you retire. It evolves. The mission changes, but the principles remain the same. You know what I learned that day in Pentagon City? Respect isn't something you give people after they prove they deserve it. It's something you give them because they're human beings sitting at the same table, working toward the same goals. And when you forget that simple truth, it doesn't matter how smart you are or how much money you control. You'll eventually find yourself explaining to an empty boardroom why your company doesn't exist anymore. Some lessons are worth teaching, even when they're expensive, especially when they're expensive.